Hello, and welcome to Mayday Roleplay. Thank you for joining us as we come together to tell stories of ghosts, beloved characters created by their storytellers who have met their final chapters. We here come to bear witness to last impressions and learn to say goodbye. This is the game known as Ghost-Fi. But before we turn our next page, some housekeeping is in order. We'd like to thank our handler-level Patreon contributors. Their involvement allows us here at Mayday to continue to produce and tell stories for your viewing pleasure. So thank you to Advanced War Sammy, OG Pan, Bimble Ward, Cameron S., Kirby's Double, Moria, Brandon C., Jonathan M., and Ren. If you too would like to contribute to Mayday, be sure to find us on Patreon. You'll get access to early releases, art, bi-monthly games run by Mayday, and our Discord server built around our wonderful community there. And expect VOD exclusive runs of Ghost-Fi by Mayday members, and a campaign diary in the near future. If you haven't heard, we have completed our third season of our Delta Green series, Doomed to Repeat, which is now available along with our extensive catalog of completed seasons and shows on our YouTube channel for VODs, and anywhere you get our podcast for audio-friendly versions. Be sure to join us bi-weekly on livestream for our Vampire the Masquerade campaign, Vegas by Night, and as always, follow us on all major social media platforms or our website for updates for future content and other news. We would like to lastly thank the wonderful guests who have come to tell stories with us, top-tier creatives in the actual play and TTRPG scene, gifted storytellers, and their beloved characters. Be sure to follow their amazing work and all the other things that they do in the description listed. Ghost-Fi is a game about death and grief and the complicated lives of complex characters. This actual play is intended for mature audiences, so please take care of yourself and be aware. Our players are under the guidance of safety tools, and X card can be employed at any time. And with that, let us begin. And now, let's introduce our cast for today. Ooh, you are muted.
Hey everybody, I'm Ian, or your boy Big, and today I'm playing Eric.
Wonderful.
His pronouns are he, him. Yeah, fine.
Oh, excellent. And I am Eli. I go by any and all pronouns. I will be your guide. Sometimes things are short-lived, and we wish that we had more time. And in these final moments for Eric, as time seems to slip away, we fade into a sense of nothingness where all manners of sight and sound and sensation seem to kind of wash over into this sort of darkness, a void even, and a sense of nothingness becomes ever surrounding. But for us, we know that from nothing can come something. And this is what is known as the manifestation, a constructed space in which a soul might find themselves around when the end has come, and made almost tangible. What is this for Eric? What is this constructed space that builds itself in the void?
What you see, it starts off extremely hazy. There's motes of black fog that kind of lighten up as if somebody were to turn these very powerful luminescent lights on, and you can see the color from the fog transitioning from black to dark gray to lighter gray, now to a brighter structure. And it's almost blinding for a moment for Eric. But as his vision begins to clear, the blur comes from blur to stars, little small wisps of smoke and fog. You find yourself in a kitchen. If you were to look around, it's very unassuming. It's not a very high industrial kitchen. It's very quaint and homey. The faux marble countertops glisten in black. There's under cabinet lighting that seems to flicker a little bit, but they get themselves a little bit going. And it's very unassuming. He opens his eyes a little bit more and he looks around and he finds himself in his home. So, again, plain 2-bedroom apartment. And he's standing at his island in his kitchen, just kind of looking out into his living room.
And as the space kind of takes its shape, this small apartment, very quaint and homely like, what does Eric look like? What do people see?
I would say he's average. Some people would consider him a little bit tall, a little bit more heavy set of a person. Very dark skin, no very strong structural facial features, no hair on the top of his head, but a complete full beard that he's been growing since high school. And it kind of feels like it just came to fruition, or he just got it to where he likes it. He stands there plain clothes, his favorite wrestling tee. He looks down and he realizes he's wearing it because he doesn't remember that was what he had last, or if he even washed it. And just jeans, and he stands there barefoot in his kitchen, just kind of hanging out. And he notices that he's been wiping the counter for the past few moments.
As you sit in this apartment, you come to notice that there's not a lot going on here. There, even to the point where if you were to extend an ear and listen, you realize that there is no sound of outdoor noise, no sensation within the space here that of any other presence, that ultimately you are alone here in this space. And while it does invoke those lonely feelings of being by oneself, there then again, as you maybe finally wipe up that last bit of space on that island and maybe throw that rag over your shoulder, all of a sudden there becomes a sensation that a presence has made their way here, that something has come along to occupy space with you. And this is your guide, a being that has come to bear witness to the story to be told, and has come to join you here in this little apartment. What would this guide be? What would they look like? What is it?
I think in this moment when I guess it feels like the vacuum of space kind of like opens itself into where Eric's senses seem to come back to them, it's not a sound that he hears. Like, although he can kind of hear the scritching of the rag on the side of his shoulder that he just placed, and maybe small sounds of ventilation, but he's not really paying attention to that. He feels something like tugging at his leg. And it's ever so gentle. It's almost in the point of letting you know they're here, but they're really excited to see you. And he looks down and he sees his healer, Sky. And she doesn't look how he last remembered. She looks healthy. Like, her coat almost is pristine. The limp in her walk on her back right leg seems to be okay as she stands and kind of spins there in a circle. Eyes seem bright. The melts of gray on her snout are gone, and it's almost as if it was the first day that he met her. And she's never been an excitable dog. She's always been this is my space, I'm very stern, give me what I need and I'll go about my way. And she still airs that, but there's a light in her eyes to where she is very excited to see him.
As that healer kind of tugs at the back of your jeans and to call attention to you, and you realize that someone is here with you, a companion, a friend who has shared time with you before and now has come to be with you again to share this next part of your journey. Let's pull our first card.
Four clubs.
Four of clubs. So clubs are also known as power cards. This power card is known as a stack card, which means that we will pull an additional card and we will use both of those prompts to find our tether here. So pull me one more card.
Two of diamonds.
Two of diamonds. So clubs are about the self, a personal affliction. And the four of clubs talks about heartbreak. Diamonds are about locations, places, or settings. And the two of diamonds is a place where you were left angry. So let's talk about that. What has caused for Eric something of considerable heartbreak, and maybe even in the act of that heartbreak, left one feeling incredibly angry?
I think being the location that he's in, being in the kitchen, it holds so much. The kitchen is one of the places where Eric felt most comfortable, but not in his own kitchen. He felt comfortable in someone else's kitchen, in an industrial restaurant kitchen. Being a former chef, that's where he first found his little bit of creativity. The first in something about himself that wasn't tailored from someone else's idea, but something that he found that was his own, and he was good at it.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't find that same comfort in his own kitchen. And looking around and getting a better idea of where he's standing. He's not standing in his apartment that he had. He's standing in an apartment that he shared. No wonder this was a 2-bedroom. No wonder Sky's still here. He's looking at the kitchen where he had a disagreement, an argument, that led to where he is, or was. There's small whispers in his head, but one very strong. I just need some time. And when he hears that in his head, he feels himself emoting the same look of confusion that turned into pain, that pain turned into frustration, that frustration grew into anger, as he out loud says, "Time for what?"
Roll me a d4.
It's a 2.
2. A 2 is a partial failure here. Your actions will fail, but nothing gets worse. So, being in this kitchen, in this space, hearing those distant words of needing time and the recall of asking time for what about that? It becomes difficult in letting go of such a moment.
Time is something that he always thought he had. Even with the difficulties that he faced in his younger life, time was always something that he knew wasn't renewing, but he had it. I'm 32. I have the time. But for this, what time else do you need? Why do you need time away from me? Why isn't this something that we can't figure out in the time that we have? What more time do you need?
Roll me an additional d4.
4.
4. You've rolled an even, which means that you will not be adding any additional progress to your failure here. So you will not earn a point here. But what you will earn yourself is spite. And spite is could be a negatively charged like feeling, like resentment, anger, frustration. What is the little bit of frustration that grows here out of this situation?
Out of this situation, obviously frustration is running rampant because Eric feels a little blindsided, but then at the same time, it's not something that he hasn't noticed. But in the same moment, he feels angry that, why are you asking this of me? This feels selfish. Haven't you seen how much I've grown? What haven't I done that you asked of me? Whether you physically asked or you acted upon it. And that selfishness that he's trying to exert outwards onto this moment turns back inwards. And how selfish can you be to not allow this space?
Kitchens are locations, whether it be in restaurants or in homes, are places in which provide a variety of functions. But kitchens are places in which people come together to break bread, essentially, to share an exchange of not only like nourishment of the body, but also nourishment of camaraderie and each other. And while time might be limited and time might not render things in which we want, kitchens can become painful reminders, especially when time continues on and we become more self-aware of the lack of presence that occupies in the space as things move forward. And to see to be alone in a kitchen can remind us in a way of better times that maybe we wish we had, or opportunities that wish we could be a part of. But right now, we just don't have enough time for it. And it's like a bit of bitterness in the mouth that makes it hard to swallow, that if time was different, maybe this kitchen would just be as lively and full of the comforts of companionship that we just don't find in this moment. And it brings, in this beautiful lighted space and room, the world seems to feel a little darker, as if a shade of white has toned down to a touch of gray and kind of overcasts such a situation. And as you return back to a sense of where you are now, and at your feet sits Sky, this beautiful little blue healer who looks up at you, and from that you get a sense of deep understanding beyond comprehension, a level of openness and empathy, as if someone is here to bear witness to your story, but ultimately for you to know that you are not alone here and that someone is with you. And with that, let us pull our next card.
Nine of Spades.
Nine of Spades. Spades are items, personal things that we keep upon us. And the Nine of Spades is something you keep in your wallet.
Eric, he doesn't keep his wallet on him. If he's in his kitchen, anytime that he comes home, he takes his wallet off and he puts it in this landing tray that he has. Phone, wallet, keys, what have you, they land there. And his attention shifts over to that landing tray and he sees his wallet and he pulls it up, and when he opens it, a little note falls out. It's handwritten, handmade on a small little piece of like cardboard construction. The corner of it is torn, and that's because somebody looks down at Sky. Somebody got into my wallet and just so happened to decide that it was a good day to chew on it. Now, although the physical wallet isn't the one that was chewed, this note was one of these things that unfortunately got in the way. And Eric, he looks down at the note, and on it says, "Remember, you're still my best friend." And he's always kept it. Even with the tear in it, there was other things in there, that cards, business cards, IDs, what have you, that he could have saved, but they just had small puncture wounds in it from Sky's good time. This one was something that he didn't care. He could still read it. It was perfect because it had a little corner of it. It was fine, but it was something that he wanted to keep.
Roll me a d4.
1.
A 1 is an absolute failure. And here, with an absolute failure, you will not only incur another point of spite, but you will also automatically earn yourself 1 failure to your overall progress. What about a note that is left behind in a wallet, regardless of its state, renders failure where maybe it's difficult to put it aside?
It brings him back to the conversation that was had weeks before he received that note. And another line of dialogue just floats in his head. And this one was more intense, and it's something that he never got rid of, and it's something that he never will, because it was the sole reason that he was in the position that he put himself, that led him to that conversation, that thought of what haven't I done from what you had asked. In that small dialogue, he's reminded, I will never trust you to be a head of this household. You don't understand. You haven't learned, and you haven't matured. So how can I trust you? And his fingers around the note just tighten so much. And for the first time in ever, there's an actual crease. There's a tear. He kept this note in such pristine condition, even in spite of what happened to it, because he did receive this note weeks after that was said to him. Now he's questioning, how could it ever been true?
Words are very powerful things, and whether they're written or spoken, they invoke a sense of power that circumvents time and space. And while this note that has been taken with as much care as possibly, despite the bumps and bruises and bites that are made along the way of this thing called life, it can also invoke memories when it becomes attached to a slew of words that are made over time. And while this is a moment in which shares a affirmation of sorts of reminding the good times, sometimes the words we say in anger or frustration or in bitterness sometimes can alter the true meaning of those words and leave us in a sense of doubt, despite whatever the initial intentions in which somebody put those words to paper and to slip it into one of the things we carry on with us, a wallet. And it is that uncertainty of what is true, the things that were spoken in the past or what was written down in the present, in the moment, that we carry on with us, that again brings a sense of dimness into this space. And what became an overcast gray starts to grow a bit darker into a more shadier night, as if the sun outside has set far too early and leaving just wide shadows in a room. But as you continue to contemplate this, you're again interrupted by Sky, who kind of bumps their nose up against you, who looks at that note as if it too is reminded of a moment in which they recall that time where they found your wallet and went to town upon it. And as you put the note away and look down at them, you realize staring back at you is a level of deep understanding beyond comprehension, maybe even deeper than what you remember Sky had the capacity for, a level of openness and empathy that is present with you and sees all that is happening around you. And with that, go ahead.
I think in this moment, Eric looks down at Sky and just with like an open understanding, is like, you saw everything. And you knew exactly what was going on.
Yeah.
Was it all that bad, Sky?
She kind of stares back in a way that dogs do when they listen to you. You know, they tilt their head back and to either side, and maybe even lick their lip a bit, but does not return a response. But is here still being with you. And with that, let us go ahead and let us pull our final card here.
Queen of Clubs.
The Queen of Clubs. So clubs, again, are about the self, a personal affliction. And the Queen of Clubs is about a grief you couldn't overcome. Tell me about it.
It was a Sunday. It's hot. It's hot here. The apartment's empty. When Eric looks around, walking from room to room, making sure that there was nothing left, as two people work in the kitchen to make sure that it's cleaned so that they can get their deposit back. There's nothing left in the apartment. Everything's been moved out. There's not a single box. There's holes in the wall from nails of pictures and trophies and memories from over the years, things they've collected over vacations, things that were gifted. The lighting is harsh because now the actual apartment lights are on and we're trying to see what everything's going on. So there's really no reason for Eric to be walking from room to room, making sure that there's nothing left. He's already made sure that it's gone. And it's sad. But it's as sad as he chose. It's not what this moment led to. That this grief is unbearable, or feeling that he can't overcome it. It's the idea of what was once in those rooms. The moments that he holds true, even the good times, even the bad times, because every single moment he learned something, and realizing that over the years, having those moments, whether they were more bad than good, in his mind, he doesn't feel, but he grew. But going back to each of those moments to where he felt he grew, there was one catalyst point, and now it's gone. So in his mind, where's the growth? If what helped him move to the next pillar, if what helped him motivate to be the next thing, if what helped him change his mentality into becoming into the person, the adult, the partner that he should be, is gone. What's there left to grow to? So are we sad about the person? Out loud, he goes, no. We're sad about the moment. This is where Eric felt that everything stopped for him.
Roll me a d4.
4.
4. A 4 here is an absolute success, where your actions are successful. This will automatically earn you a point of success, as well as it will remove a touch of spite that has been acclimated along the way. So what about this moment about boxes being stacked up and the preparation to move is successful in letting go or moving on from it?
Eric stands at the steps. This apartment's on the 2nd floor, so he stands down at the steps where the last little bit has gone. The door is locked up. She comes walking down the steps, and Eric looks at her, and she walks down, and she also has a distant, sad look, but she looks at him and she smiles. And she says, I am so very proud of you. And with the deepest confusion, because internally Eric is a storm cloud that is legitimately waiting to bust. This is the first time in ever he will be by himself with his thoughts, by his own means. He's always had people live for him to help him because of his ailment that he experienced in his younger days, or just what have you, or just being a rambunctious kid. But for a very long time, or what feels a long time for him, he finally was living for someone else, and that moment is gone. And they stand there and they look at him and they say how proud he is of him. And for some reason, in that small moment, as angry or sad as he is about the entire situation, about what's about to happen next, whether he knows it or not, for a glimpse, he finally realizes what they mean. In one swift moment, from one point in his timeline till now, growth was noticed in his own right. And it took somebody who was willing to walk away to highlight a reason to stay. And Eric looks down at Sky, seemingly taking himself back into that manifestation point to where he is back in the kitchen. And now he's on bended knee looking at Sky. And for some reason in this entire time, for the first time, he feels himself exhale, and it's cold, but he feels a small bit of release just from that thought. I'm so very proud of you.
Moving is a event that is guarded in points of time of our lives. We will throughout our entire life move in some way, shape, or form from place to place, but it's the moments in between that we truly, like plants, grow and change, and the things. And when boxes are being put together and memories taken off the wall, those are the times in which we have an opportunity to reflect about the in between from that point, that last point we moved to the next point we move on to. And that in between is what is a part of our lives. And good or bad things happen, and it is marked in between by these moments, and all the way up until we get to that last final box where the keys are being handed in and the door is being closed. Do we put finality onto those points of life, and we turn around and we look ahead to the next marker? And hearing those final words, that I'm so proud of you to put that final bit of closure to this point in time, to acknowledge what had happened in the in-between, is in itself some things that we can find gratitude in experiencing, because not very often do we get the opportunity to have that kind of reflection, to have that word to have those string of words be made, to have that acknowledgement, and to be able to have that before the next step is taken, brings a bit of weight off the shoulder, that lightens the space around us, that takes us from the shadowy parts that begin to kind of close into us, but then reopens us back up. And we're reminded that, that the time that we had before and the time that we move on to next, deserves these kinds of acknowledgements, because it only makes us better for it in the end. And we can find the courage to continue on. And as you sit down, one kneed by in front of Sky, and Sky looks at you in this apartment, once again, you're met with the sensations of understanding beyond comprehension, a level of openness and empathy of a companion who has come to join you and to bear witness to all of these moments that present themselves wherever we are. And it's that moment where, like healers who are a type of bird dog, Sky becomes to kind of start to kind of circle around you and start to kind of nudge and nip at the back of your heel, as if trying to convey that we need to go somewhere. We need to be somewhere not here. And as they kind of push you and wrangle you towards the door, what Sky is doing is Sky is leading you somewhere beyond this manifestation, to what is known as the Crossing. And the Crossing represents a location in which things go into many directions. This can be something such as an airport, a bus or train station, stairwells, forks in the road, portals like doors or gates or cave entrances, even pools. It is simply a location in which, in these multitude of directions, one has to make a definitive decision on where to go next. So what is this place that Sky leads you off to? What is this place of crossing for Eric?
It's weird because it's not something Eric would think, if there's any opportunity of thinking of what's happening right now. It's not something he would expect. But it's something that makes sense. It makes sense now. If this was any other time, if this was any other space, it wouldn't make any sense, but it makes sense now. Sky nudges Eric over to the apartment door, and he opens it, and there's no flash of light, there's no smoke, there's no fanfare. He opens the door, and he's staring into a basement level parking garage, and it's empty. And Sky goes running through the door, and he can kind of hear her barks, very quiet. And he walks through the door, just more so on the instinct of like, hey, where are you going? And as soon as he walks through that door and he enters this basement level parking garage, he spins his head, and when he turns around, there's this car. And it's not the car that he last remembered going through his life and these milestones and these achievements and financial security in this car. It's not that. It's the first car that he ever bought himself. An old, beat up, off-white, almost yellow convertible PT Cruiser. Power steering's probably shit. It's got a cigarette burn in the roof, and it's funny that that's where he is, and then that's the car, because that's the car that got him from catering job to this seedy kitchen to the next seedy kitchen that's in the back of a bar. And he only had one day off a week that he could remember, and he looks down and he sees Sky, and he remembers those one days would be the days that he and her would put the top down on the PT Cruiser. He'd buckle her in because she's rambunctious, and they would just go somewhere.
So here in this parking garage, the crossing is a time to reflect upon the tethers that we have been met with, and to make a definitive decision on letting go of it all or holding on. And there's two ways we can go about this. We can do it by reflection, which means that we'll look at the successes and failures and the spite made along the way. And through us just talking about it, we'll make a definitive answer here about what we make decision-wise. Or we can contest it, which is building a dice pool based on your successes and failures, and see what the dice tell us about these successes and failures, and use that as a guidance in which we make these decisions. So how do you feel that you want to go about this stage?
I'd like to do reflection.
Beautiful. So you have earned yourself 1 point of success, 1 point of failure, and you had to spite, but in reaching success, you were able to kind of quell it, so down to 1. So 1's across the board: success, failure, and spite. So what does that look like for Eric contemplating this stuff, looking at moments of heartbreak, and looking at words that have been carried along in a personal item to the act of moving from one place to the next? What about this does derive an answer to the greater question?
In this moment, being that Eric's thought about life was just so small, it was so internal. And of course, time, some people think is linear, some people think, it's wibbly wobbly, depending on who you talk to. In this particular moment, he laughs, and it's good, hearty chuckle. Like it's weird. It echoes on this parking garage, because anytime that he wants to sit there and he wants to think about all of the terrible, the arguments, the going left instead of going right, the decisions that he made that led him to a point to where he feels like he regretted or wished turned out better. In a single moment, there's another thought that prompts up, that shows him the silver lining of every single situation. There's bad and good in everything. That's life. That's how life moves. But it's up to us to focus on what part of life we want to stay on. And although those disagreements, those moments, those arguments, fights, frustrations, wrong decisions, bad pathways, terrible times, there's always something better. Out of every argument came clarification. Out of every wrong decision came growth, knowledge, wisdom. Out of every left you took, you had another right that you could take again. He looks at Sky and he opens the passenger door. Then I hope she pops in, because he goes to the driver's side, fixes his mirror, puts down the manual convertible top that's still stuck, but hey, it's life. He just puts his hands on the steering wheel.
When you open that door, Sky does jump in, and as it takes a moment for that top down to finally get its way all the way to the back, to leave open air for both you and Sky to be able to make this next leg of your journey a little bit more comfortable for both of you, in the way that you guys used to all these times ago. We move on into our epilogue, which is just one final reflection, one last opportunity to help define this notable end to this story, and to be able to say goodbye for Eric in the best way that he knows how.
In every opportunity Eric had to do whatever, positive or negative, he always did it with the intent of being better. There was never an opportunity, there was never a moment or a decision that he made to spite someone else. Because at the end of the day, no one else is going to pay my bills, in the general sense. So he did what he could to make sure that he's better and the people that are around him are better. And it never worked out in most cases, but in some cases it was really good. And the only thing that he can, I guess in this space, physically say after that small reflection, looking down at Sky, and is content to where he is and excited to where he's going next. He raises a middle finger in the air and he says, "Sorry about your damn luck." And he drives away.
As that car engine kind of roars on to life, and as you begin to kind of back out into that parking garage, as you wait at the gate for the gate to kind of open itself up, and it's just a rickety sounding chain and motor that seems to slowly open for you. Ever we reminded that life is a mixture of good and bad, and that despite it all, that's just a part of it. And we never rarely have control over these things, that ultimately we have to take it in stride. And the best thing that we can do about it is give it space and give it acknowledgement, and realize that not only do we not know what we're doing in this thing that is known as life, but that all of it is a part of the process. And until we are able to accept that in a way, that is the only reason why things feel as hard as they are or as light as they can be, until we can acknowledge that all we have to do is flow along with this current and take it for what it is and build upon it. Things only get difficult for us. But in that acknowledgement, we are able to bring lightness to it, to be able to flow down a river and make peace with it, turn down the bend of the road and move forward to the next thing, whatever it may be. And as that gate finally opens well enough for you and Sky to drive off, Sky gives that one final look to you, excited and ready to take on this next leg and journey, and by your side in this very yellow PT Cruiser. You pull out from this parking garage and you move on to this empty street, and you take a right down the road, and as the rest of us just watch you take that turn and drive off to whatever it is that comes next here, so too does this apartment complex eventually start to kind of fade away. This 2-bedroom apartment with an island and a kitchen and empty walls of a space that has been packed up and has been moved away dissipates back into the void, until this parking garage itself turns back into the nothingness. And all we hear are just the last bit of tires on road fading off into the distance. I think that is where we'll end this story today for Eric, as Eric moves on to the beyond with companion in tow.
Yay!
Hell yeah. Wonderful. Yeah. Thank you. And thank you everybody for coming here today, to taking some time to hear this story of Eric. Ian, why don't you reintroduce yourself to everybody? Give us that wonderful spiel of all the cool things that you're up to, all the cool things that you do, and everything in between.
Absolutely. First off, thank you for allowing me this space. This was more than I think some of the listeners realize, and I appreciate it. Listeners, viewers, what have you. Hey, I'm going to stop that and do my thing. I'm Ian, or your boy Big, on all social media. If you want to know what I'm doing next, follow me on Twitter. That's your boy Big, YABOIBIG. And of course, if you don't like my face but don't mind hearing my voice or whatever, you can go to your major podcast streaming platforms, where I am a part of the Fang Gang podcast while we're in the middle of a Curse of Straw campaign. And I feature a little bit on the Heart of the Dungeon podcast over on Spotify, hanging out with the homies over there too. Thank you again, Eli. I appreciate this.
Yes, of course. If you like this game and want to test it out for yourself, if you think that your tables or players or even yourself might benefit from an opportunity of learning a little bit more about your characters, or giving characters a sense of finality in their story, I highly recommend you getting Ghostfi for yourself. Ghostfi was a game that I wrote in 2022 as an opportunity for storytellers, writers, players, game makers, what have you, to be able to guide themselves through themes of death and grief, and being able to maybe bring some level of closure to the characters we put our hearts and souls into. So if you think that might be the right fit for you, I highly suggest you look at the link below and grab a copy for yourself, and see where the journey and the road takes you. this story is a part of a series of stories of 13 ghosts who, 6 of them in which are wonderful guests like Ian here, who have brought a variety of characters to the table to also share in these stories. So be sure to come back throughout this wondrous Halloween, and be sure to hear everybody's tale of last impressions and learning to say goodbye. So I hope to see you in the near future. And until then, I hope we will see you later. Have a good one.